In an exclusive chat with ET Now's Supressionet, Montek Singh, Deputy Chairman of Planning Commission, says half-hearted actions could lead to a growth of as low as 6 to about 6.5%. But if government works according to the plan, then an 8.2% GDP growth can definitely be achieved.
I would say that 8.2% is still, it's difficult. The scaling down from the 9% that we had originally put in the approach paper is simply a reflection of the fact that when that was done, the global economy was in a very different situation, and also the domestic economy had not seen some of the supply constraints that have arisen. So I think the scaling down just reflects the fact that growth last year was 6.5. We hope it'll be better this year. In any case, it's going to take some time to ramp up. So what we are saying is that from, say, something like 6.5, we should be able to go back to 9, but by the end of the planned period. And that gives you roughly an average of 8.2. Not easy to do, because I think we've emphasized in the plan that the 8.2 is our scenario 1, if everything works well.
Precisely, yes.
But you know, for the first time ever, the Planning Commission has never done this before.
You've given 3 scenarios.
We've given 3 scenarios only to make the point that outcomes depend on policies. So we've got a second scenario where what we are recommending doesn't get done for whatever reason. Half-hearted action, incomplete action, growth can slip between 6 and 6.5. And if you get a real policy logjam, again for whatever reason, if policies don't happen, then you can go down to 5, 5.5, something of that order. I think the point we're trying to make is the role of policy is to determine where do we get from the 5 something at the bottom end
to about
8.2, and that is what we should be emphasizing.
And I appreciate the fact that for the very first time, I think the Planning Commission has been very pragmatic. You are taking 3 scenarios because there are realities that we live with. We are in a coalition government. There are global realities that will come back to haunt us. I appreciate the fact that you're being pragmatic and taking those 3 scenarios, but a whole host of other experts will perhaps believe that does the government lack the power to make decisions? Is the government lacking that assertive decision-making authority, and which is why you've had to give these 3 scenarios?
No, I don't think the scenarios are in any way connected with a belief whether we can make decisions or not. I think it's just a realistic reflection. If you look at the world in the last 2 or 3 years, I mean, take the global economy. I mean, the IMF made all these optimistic forecasts, and every 6 months they toned them down. So recognizing that things don't necessarily work out in the best possible way, we want to make people realize that there's no point just endorsing an 8.2 and then not working to achieve it. So we're not regarding the scenarios as alternatives that choose between this and that. What we're really saying is, look, if we all work together with some determination, the government is able to get this done, and it is, after all, we are in a democratic environment, we have to persuade people. 8.2, inclusive growth, reduction in poverty, more employment, better access, better participation,
we can get there.
All of this is possible. But you know, if we don't do what is necessary, then performance will slip. And it's not just growth that will slip, it's the inclusiveness will also slip.
I can tell you with some amount of certainty that tomorrow the morning newspapers are going to take a flip from what you've said, 5% growth, alarm bells ringing. I presume this is going to be the headline, which is why I'm asking you. Is this also an attempt by the government to reach out to a very adamant opposition, to reach out to tough allies and say, we've all got to work together, there's got to be policy action, else this is how crippled growth will be? Was that on your mind when you were actually putting this action plan together? 5% growth is alarm bells ringing.
Well, I think you can say that it is an honest effort to explain to people that it's no use just agreeing with a plan and then conducting your affairs in a completely different way. And I think these things should be, when we say this is what we need for 8.2, and then in another context we don't do it, we should actually get up and say we're not interested in 8.2. I think a lot of people think that growth is not important, but then they should also say we're not interested in inclusiveness.
That's right.
Because we are saying that you don't get 8.2, you won't generate the employment that our young people need. That means you won't get the sort of investment needed. You won't get the investment in health and education, and that will have a cumulative effect.
The RBI is going to take a policy action on Monday. It has repeatedly said that fiscal correction needs to be made, measures need to be taken on the fiscal side. Perhaps in the last 48 hours, a lot of that correction has been made, a lot of those measures have been taken. Do you expect RBI to now cut rates because India Inc. and everybody around feels interest rates are way too high and are holding growth back?
You know, I make a rule never to speculate on what the poor
I'm not asking you to speculate, I'm asking you.
But I will say this, that if what you're trying to judge compared to, let's say, 10 days ago, has the government created fiscal space? Has the government given a signal that policy constraints on growth are being removed? The answer is unambiguously yes. Now, whether the RBI feels that those signals are enough or not, I think I'll leave it to them to judge. But there's absolutely no question in my mind that the signals are there, they're in the right direction.